What?
Can you actually emphasize particular things in the study guide?
I will emphasize.
Like which things need emphasized?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Okay.
So what is the resegregation of schools mean?
It's like with like socioeconomic people living together, like kind of decides. Is that right? Is that on the right track?
You're on the right track.
It's like
a natural division of schools based on
yes, about like your
because of
social
taxes.
and class and
Right. So there was white flight, as they call it. I didn't.
because white people run away from
They ran away from
Into the
that.
suburbs.
neighborhoods.
Yes.
From the darkies.
Yep. And I say yeah. Not all of it. No, wait a second. Don't let me don't let me talk. So there's this white flight movement. I don't know if it's a movement, but it happened. They moved to the suburbs, and then the urban areas tended to be more diverse. And so we have a natural segregation. And so then they tried to fix some of these things by busing in students to other districts, or like in Westerville, for example, there's a chunk of Columbus City Schools that is part of Westerville City Schools. There was all sorts of anger about including that section of Columbus City Schools in Westerville.
I'm sure.
And what's yeah, it's horrible. And what's funny, I don't know if it's actually not funny, but so they divided up this section of Columbus and gave it to each of the 3 high schools in Westerville. And the richest high school in Westerville, which is Central, has the richest part of the poor part. I'm like, oh, that's how you're gonna do it, huh? And it's actually mostly the most diverse school is South, and it's just funny how they just divide it up and.
Somehow, again, by socioeconomic.
Yeah, I'm like.
It's a mystery how they figure that out.
Yeah, you guys are crazy, and it caused a whole bunch of people did not want that to happen. Anyway, so that's what that is. What are the dimensions of multicultural education?
Content, integration, knowledge, and construction of process,
Yeah.
reduction, and empowering school, culture, social structure, and equity.
Okay.
Nice, you got that. So what is content integration? I'm going to want you to tell me what it is. This is multicultural education, so
Is this question worth like 20 points?
no.
Should be.
What is content integration?
And then like when you try to immerse like parts of their culture into like what you're teaching about.
Yeah, so everyone's culture should be included in your content.
That's why there's student about like SPAR.
Right. Knowledge construction process, what does that refer to?
Construction of the knowledge process.
Good. Just rephrase it. And that's all you need. Good. So what?
The process,
Oh, you mean
the
that
knowledge
work?
process being
No,
constructed.
I was like, what?
Oh, you do.
This whole test is gonna rock.
Well, isn't it after you integrate the content, it's like working it out so that it's throughout every like subject?
That's part of it, yeah.
Like it's shown throughout.
That's part of it. And also showing how some of the knowledge was constructed, how some of these social biases were made, what they mean, and how do we like move past them. So you want to kind of talk about this and construct new knowledge about multicultural.
Wait, what was the term again?
Knowledge construction process. What is an equity pedagogy?
Just making sure everyone's taught the same, right?
How come I still me?
It's trying to include different kinds of teaching. So in the book it mentions that African American students do better with oral learning. So you include that in your pedagogy, an oral learning. You'd include like visual learning. You'd include tactile, like touch, those kind of things, so that you're trying to incorporate different ways of teaching that would help all your students. So it's how you teach. Prejudice reduction, I think that makes sense. You know what that means. And then the last one, empowering school culture. What is an empowering school culture?
Just a culture where a environment where they could feel safe.
Yeah, where everyone feels safe. Sometimes you and valued. Sometimes you don't. Like you have to sometimes think. I know, maybe, like you don't even know you may not be empowering certain people in your classroom. You may not be paying attention to it, and so you just kind of stepping outside and looking at what you do, and help to remember that everyone should feel like part of your class and empowered, no matter who they are, their background, etc. And sometimes, honestly, I think people don't even know that they're not including people. They'll just be like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. So just try to step back and look at yourself and try to empower everybody in your class. All right, so those are the dimensions of a multicultural ed. Good thing to know. Meaning of culture. Just what is culture defined as?
Like the set of values and beliefs and basically the way of life for a group of people. Like,
Oh my gosh, that's almost exactly out of the book, Wade. Good job. Way of life common to a group of people. You got it. Just know what that means. Meaning of multiculturalism.
Having many ways of life and groups of people.
Yeah. And recognizing and valuing the rich array of these cultures in your country, in your nation, and the global community. Meaning of race.
Technically race does not exist, it's a made up
Right.
It's
It's,
based
division
on,
of
like,
people because
biological
everyone's so
backgrounds.
like interbred nowadays that no
Maturity.
right. So it is a subjective concept, so there's not really an objective nature to it, that distinguishes human beings on the basis of biological traits. Now, I think if you're actually in a biological trait and there's a difference in your race, a true difference, you couldn't actually breed, so there's not really a difference between races, but we acknowledge this for reasons, I'm not sure why, but we acknowledge it.
Can you say that again? The definition?
So the definition of race is a subjective concept that is used to distinguish among human beings on the basis of biological traits. And there are differences, obviously. Skin color, hair color, eye color. And even like stuff you can't see, there's differences too, like in our DNA.
Or skull shape.
Skull shape, yep. Things of that nature. Alright, so what are some learning needs of minority students? This is really boring. Not this, but just this review session is kind of boring. What are learning needs of minority students?
To feel like they won't be discriminated against.
Yes. What are some specific things that we do?
The second language, the English.
Bilingual ed, yeah.
English as a second language.
Mm-hmm. We also have Afrocentric schools. There's actually also Native American schools out there. I mean, not a lot, but they exist. And then there's just being aware of other different like cultures and how they're perceived in the U.S. For example, it talks about Asian students and how they have this perception that they all do really well in school, and how that can negatively affect them, because obviously not every Asian student does well in school. So just being aware of some of these misconceptions and trying to deal with them in your classroom. So also know your different models of child development. So what are the 4 models we talked about for child development?
Kohlberg, Erickson, Kohlberg,
Maslow.
Maslow, yes, hierarchy of needs.
Yeah. So what is Piaget's? Should stand up. Is this
Cognitive.
recording?
That's cognitive development.
Yep, and it's just on you, so.
Awesome.
So Piaget's is cognitive development, right?
So is he
Back
on
on
four?
text.
Does he have the 4 stages?
Yeah, sensory motor.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't have,
Pre-sensory, or like, yeah.
Pre.
There's, is it pre-sensory?
yes.
And there's sensory.
You don't have to know all the stages
Okay, just,
of Piaget.
oh, then Piaget is cognitive development.
Yes,
Erickson
and
is-
kind of know what that means. What does it mean? What does cognitive development mean? By
The
the
way
way,
we think.
yes. And so there's different stages, and those are represented by age, generally speaking. So I know that you can kind of, if someone's severely behind in some of the cognitive stages, it could signal a disability. If they're like a few months behind, it just could signal nothing. So just remember that. But it's used to kind of see, okay, this kid is in kindergarten, they should be at this stage. What are ways that I can use to teach them because of their cognitive ability at this point in time in their life? So kind of use it in that way. And then you've got Erickson's model. He has a
Psychosocial.
Yes. 8
Eight
stages.
stages, each one has a
Until he had
question that you have to
he made
answer.
up a 9th one when he was dying.
He did.
But I think he was just crazy.
He might have been. Yeah, actually, he kind of was. So, yeah, each stage has a crisis, and if the crisis isn't met, it causes a problem on the,
Developmental.
yes, the psychosocial development. So you've got cognition, you've got your social, psychosocial development. What is Kohlberg's?
Moral.
Moral. Know a couple things about Kohlberg. We've talked about.
Sexist.
Yes, he's sexist, supposedly. He also, there's a
He just
debate on.
wrote about what he knew. Everybody's off to point people as like, I'm after another group. People just write after what they know. Doesn't mean that they.
Well, that doesn't mean they shouldn't go beyond what they
Yeah,
see.
I was gonna say, if you write what you know, then you shouldn't try to classify it into everybody, you should.
Yeah, but you gotta think about when he wrote this. This is a accepted like thing at that point in time. And I understand, like, I'm not like, woo, go, like, put women down, but like, he wasn't like saying anything offensive. He was just.
You know, but you gotta remember too, at one time the Klan was accepted too, but now we look at it as racist, should we not look at that racist?
I mean,
Because it was accepted during the time.
but it wasn't a mass acceptance. The difference is that the entire world. I mean, there was a large following. I'm not like trying to belittle that, but it wasn't like I mean, for hundreds and hundreds of years, women stayed at home. Like
Right.
in every culture, it wasn't like a.
Well, not every
Not
culture.
every culture, there were cultures around
There
the
were
world where
actually
women
a
were empowered
few-
more than men.
Yeah, there are a few cultures that were matriarchal. But just because it was that way didn't make it right.
But if
And,
you
I
make
mean,
him out
there's-
to be a bad guy. He's not like.
He wasn't necessarily trying to be bad, I will say that.
If you want to make people out to be a bad guy, you gotta like get rid of like all of like America before like.
Yeah. But also know that there's debate that you can't teach morals. The morals are just kind of something learned. I mean, inherent or learned, I'm not sure. But you can't like teach it. You just pick it up, I guess. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but there's a debate about that. And also, not everyone can reach the highest moral stage that he talked about. People kind of don't completely develop morally, according to Kohlberg.
This is just something that happened that was really cute. At work, we have a word of the week, and the word was gratitude. And we were teaching them like how to show gratitude, and how it's like being thankful for something, and like we gave them all these examples. And I opened the door for one of our kindergartners, and he looks up at me and goes, "Gratitude."
That's funny. Gratitude. I'm gonna say that next time someone opens the door for me. Gratitude.
Right, look over you, how you know my son?
And then the last one is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Know that you can't get to the next piece of the hierarchy until the needs are fulfilled. So it starts out with like just basic needs, and it gets
Physiological.
yes. And then it moves to
Safety.
yes. You got them down. And just know that you can't get to one without the other. And not everyone reaches the highest.
Which is self-actualization.
Not everyone reaches I can't say it. Actualization. In that one either. So just kind of generally know them. Okay, variation in students. So what are some of the variations we have in students?
Different levels of learning.
Okay, like intelligence or their ability?
Their
Or both.
ability.
Just how they learn.
They're like multiple
What
intelligence.
processes in their mind versus what doesn't.
Okay,
Yeah, what she said.
yes.
People with different support structures. So
Mhm.
like people that have parents that, help them with their homework every night, and then people who have parents that lock them in their rooms so they can go do drugs. Sorry, I was trying to.
Well, you go from one
I'm
to
trying to-
another. There is a middle ground there.
Hey, they, at least they
I
love
thought
them
she was
away.
gonna. I thought she was gonna say that they were too tired from working all day.
Right.
I know.
I was trying to go very polar ends.
You got the extremes.
Yeah, it's just like in my head right now. I want to call DHR on whoever that was she was talking about.
So we have students have varying variation, and you kind of have to compensate for that in the class. What's the inclusion debate? We talked about this.
Students with disabilities and their parents want them to be included in the classroom so that they don't become socially awkward, and so that they can learn as much as they can, encompass that. And then people on the other side are going to say that they have a cap on what they can learn, and that by having them in the classroom it's a distraction, and therefore hurting other people's education. But then other people would say that having them in there teaches people to appreciate diversity and people's differences. I wrote my paper about this. And
I'm not scared of anybody.
and that it creates less of a social divide.
Right.
So.
That's it. Inclusion debate.
Good job.
No words need to be added. So creating a positive learning environment. You guys just took a quiz on that. Talks about the physical environment, classroom organization, grouping. You can talk about other things too, like smiling, things of that nature. Classroom management. What is a democratic classroom?
Where the students have a say in what they're doing.
Well, I was about to say it's
Where's the democracy?
Yes, there's a thread of democracy in the classroom. Let's not assume it's complete.
And the causes
But-
of dictatorship.
Recess all the time.
Right. But there is some democracy in the classroom. What is preventive planning?
I'm sorry, what?
Preventive planning.
So like having a punishment for like a student hitting another student, but only having it there so that they don't actually hit another student.
Okay, yeah. Anything else? You can also include, if you're gonna have a big assignment, try to do little assignments that lead up to it so the students are ready for the big assignment. So scaffolding is what that's called. Could be part of preventive planning. But just kind of try and foresee what will happen and prepare for it, either with punishment or with reward, or just your curriculum. Effective responses to student behavior. That essentially means be firm and I guess let the punishment fit the crime kind of thing. So if someone throws a pencil across the room, you don't suspend them.
That's the zero tolerance policy.
That is part of zero tolerance. But if they throw a pencil across the room every day for a month, maybe you do consider something a little more than just getting after them. So you have to let the punishment fit the crime.
We did that because we had a kid who kept throwing mulch, and it wasn't the fact to the point that he was throwing the mulch, it was the fact that we told him 800 times not to throw the mulch.
And he's still doing it.
And we talked to his mom, and she was like, well, I feel like I'm not really informed. And so we wrote a list of every time he acted up and threw mulch. And then she was like, I feel like he's being nitpicked. I'm like, you asked for a list. Didn't you?
Like,
At
lady,
that point,
what
you
do
gotta
you
find
want?
Then we
another
told
kid.
him, he actually was crazy
And
and
you
had,
pay a bigger kid,
Come and beat him.
candy, just to keep throwing mulch in him and you make him eat it. And then he'll never want to touch mulch again.
You do not do that. You do not do that.
You have to reward bullying.
it ended up that he had to go to the doctor and get,
Cause I was waiting for
parents weren't taking him to the doctor, he has ADHD, and they weren't taking him to the doctor to get his
His
medicine
meds.
because he races go-karts. And he like goes to Daytona and races, he's in the 2nd grade, and he does really good, he races go-karts.
Wow.
But
this is good
they
when
didn't
he's
want to put him
on
on the
his
medicine
medicine.
because if he's on the medicine, he can't race a go-kart. And so we told him like, you need to like do something or take him out of this program because he is a pain in our neck.
Okay, so for anyone who wants to leave, it's 9:50. You can go. Take something with you if you leave.
I have to go to Almost House to make
Robot, please, so.
Thank you.
Bye. Yes, thank you. I have really enjoyed this semester and you
I enjoyed it
all
too.
the fun
So
chatting.
is the test kind of like our midterm? Like
The test is going to be it's a little more short answer, so it's going to be 50% is going to be multiple choice, so that's 25 questions, 2 points each, and then 10 questions of short answer. 5
That's not too
points.
bad.
No, it's not bad.
I mean, a little more than we're used to, but you know.
It's just like taking